are the voices that you listen to in your week that lift your spirit, encourage you, and challenge you in good ways? Even at my age, I miss the voice of my mother and my grandmother. My grandmother, who was a child during World War I in Siberia, and my mother, who was a child during World War II in Berlin. Neither of them received a very good formal education. But life's experience, life's hard knocks, and being refugees taught them things that gave them wisdom. There are other voices whom I listen to. Most mornings begin with Rejoice, this devotional that's published by our Anabaptist publisher, Menno Media. The given Bible readings nurture me with their ancient wisdom, and the Anabaptist voices who write the reflections provide contemporary wisdom for me to reflect on. With warmer days again, I'm enjoying morning coffee on the deck, where the bird songs lift me out of my thoughts and put me in tune with the beauty of each new day that God gives. I enjoy reading novels, and about a decade ago or so, I set a goal of searching and reading authors who are other than white and North American writers. Some years I do better than others. And increasingly in the last years of my pastoral work, I searched for biblical and theological voices from perspectives other than dominant white heterosexual voices, so that I could experience a fuller dimension of God's vast wisdom. So I invite you now to pause and bring to mind the voices that encourage you and give you life during your week. These may be loved ones, people you know well, or they may be voices from God's creation. They may be voices who speak to you through whom you listen to, who you read. Children, who are the people who help you and cheer you on? I invite you to turn to a neighbor and briefly share one or two of the voices who give you life and nurture you. It's good to hear your voices. Think of the multitudes of individuals who bring wisdom into our lives. There's always a chance later on to do more talking about who brings wisdom into your life. In the book of Proverbs, wisdom raises her voices in the ordinary, everyday places where people live their lives, like the people that you have named. For the ancient people, that wisdom was proclaimed in diverse places. In the hills and wilderness of creation, wisdom could be found where the roads crossed and people met, and she could be found at the city gates where business, personal, and community issues were resolved. Proverbs speaks hopefully and optimistically that wisdom raises her voices and can be found giving life to those who hear and heed her words. Public education is being challenged on many fronts these days. The last few years in which we lived in Iowa City, there were more and more state laws in Iowa that regulated what teachers could and could not teach in the classroom, as if educators couldn't be trusted to know what was best for their students. And yet, wisdom persists and continues to find her voice in the classroom. Our daughter-in-law in Winnipeg was on maternity leave from teaching a few years ago. During that maternity leave, she chose to volunteer at her school in a program called Roots of Empathy. Once a month, she would take young baby Auden into the school so that the children could experience an infant growing who is vulnerable and needs the care of others. The program was developed by Mary Gordon, a social entrepreneur and educator. Her belief was that the absence of empathy could lead to violence of all kinds. And so she set out to break this cycle by developing empathy in children. When her daughter-in-law Megan walked into the school for one of these monthly sessions, she saw one of her previous students, who was now in second grade, with the principal. It was obvious that this was not a happy social visit to the principal's office. But a few minutes later, as this child joined the circle on the floor to experience baby Auden on the blanket in all her babiness, the child's demeanor was transformed to one of wonder and delight. Yes, the voice of wisdom, despite challenges, continues to speak in our schools. It seems that when scarcity hits public budgets, funding the arts is one of the first things to be cut. And yet, I've discovered in our relatively short time in the Denver area that there are still events where there is no charge or the cost is by donation. There are businesses, patrons of the arts, the city, and others who have decided that access for all people to the arts is good for a community. According to one website I read, research has shown that cities that emphasize art have more civic and social engagement, better child welfare, and even lower poverty rates. Wisdom joyfully raises her voice at the Metropolitan Choral Festival each August at the Mapleton Arts Center here in Denver, where a mass choir and the Colorado Symphony perform, and it's free to all of us. Healthcare is another area that is facing challenges these days, both for those who provide care and those of us who sometimes need care. Since coming to the U.S., I have learned that there are pockets in the country where regions have developed healthcare systems that are more equitable and just. In 1989, Dr. James Gingrich, along with dozens of neighbors, formed a board that began the Maple City Healthcare Center in Goshen, Indiana. From 1,800 patients in its earliest years, the expanded healthcare system now is flourishing and serves patients at 4 different sites, providing holistic patient care. When patients weren't showing up because they couldn't afford even the considerably lower healthcare costs this clinic asked, Dr. Gingrich developed a system where they could pay their bill through documented volunteer service. The result was not only better health care for these individuals, but greater diversity in the many organizations in the community where these medical clients and volunteers volunteered, because many were Hispanic. Through experience, the clinic has learned that Strong relationships improve health. And so, besides individual care, they offer numerous community health services. They've learned they can drive down the overall cost of health care through generous focus on primary care. They've learned that a team working together is better at assessing root causes of illness, whether illness of body, mind, or spirit. And they've learned that if they only focus on need, the needs multiply. But if they focus on the assets, even in vulnerable groups, the community's assets multiply. Yes, wisdom raises her voice in healthcare that is just and is good for healthcare givers and receivers alike. A few years ago, we spent a day in the Black Hills of South Dakota on our trip home. That amazing monument of Crazy Horse being developed across many lifetimes as a tribute to celebrate Native peoples. We were introduced to the energetic and whirling traditional shawl dance and hoop dance of the Lakota people. The hoop dancer was a great teacher and shared that there are more than 450 distinct Native groups in the U.S., diverse in their cultures and practices, but one similarity in their ancient wisdom is their connection to creation. Creation is their relative, to be treated with care, with giving and receiving. Yes, Lady Wisdom's voice is heard in diverse voices and in public places. It's not just that she has knowledge. She knows how to apply it so there is just living that indeed gives life rather than drains life and harms. King Solomon is considered the original author of much of Proverbs. And in 1 Kings 3 and 4, King Solomon is eulogized as the wisest king of the time for his vast knowledge of plants, animals, birds, reptiles, and fish, for his giftedness in composing thousands of songs and proverbs, and his insight and breadth of understanding. A wise man. And yet, 1 Kings 11 reflects another side of who this king was. We learned that what he also loved was the privilege, the political clout, and the military alliances that his many marriages gave him. Proverbs was likely originally written for young men preparing for civil service. In that very patriarchal and male-dominated world, the desire was for those young men to make prudent and wise choices. But it didn't question the status quo of male domination and treating women as possessions. So in a world that had such a low view of the place of a woman's body, it's outstanding and astonishing that wisdom is personified as a woman, and that she has a strong voice that is heard in the nooks and crannies of daily life. God always comes to us in the cultures in which we live, but God refuses to be trapped in a world of domination. Lady Wisdom can be found in all creation and in all genders. And in case we wonder where Lady Wisdom comes from, she gives us her credentials. Right at the beginning, before even the seas and the mountains and fields were created, God brought me, Lady Wisdom, into existence. When the foundation of the earth was laid out, I was the master of crafts, the skilled artisan standing next to the Almighty. Wisdom is as ancient as creation. In fact, she's older than creation. She is God's companion as master crafter, present in the birthing of creation. Carpenters, jewelers, leather workers, metal workers, painters, potters, sculptors, and weavers are all skilled craftspeople who create with their hands. But besides their honed skills, their craft invites a sense of playfulness and imagination, experimenting and testing as they bring about a new creation. The Hebrew word for master of crafts or skilled artisan also has the sense of nursling or a child, one who is growing up. And children certainly teach us how to be playful. That is their work, to try on different personas, to imagine, to create, and through that playful testing, grow into their very unique being. Terry and I, a number of years ago, had the opportunity to hear Otis Moss III preach at an ecumenical preaching conference, where he shared a powerful story from an interaction with one of his children. In 2008, Otis Moss III followed well-known retired pastor Jeremiah Wright at Trinity United Church of Christ in Chicago when Barack Obama was running for president. It was a very difficult beginning year for Otis, as every day of that first year, he and his family received death threats, sometimes up to 40 a day. Daily, dog sniffers went through the church, and there was full-time security at the church and at their home. Otis was stressed. One night when Otis woke up to a strange sound. In his fear, he took a baseball bat and went in search. He realized the noise was coming from upstairs. It led him to his 6-year-old daughter's bedroom. He opened the door. "Daddy, I'm dancing in the dark." With relief, he said, "It's 3 a.m. and you need to go to sleep." "But Daddy, I'm dancing in the dark." "No, you're not. You're going to bed." "But Daddy, I'm dancing in the dark." Otis went to his study, and he began to rewrite his Sunday sermon. His daughter had provided in her childlikeness the wisdom and the hope that he and his congregation needed in this very difficult time. The wisdom and innocence of a child dancing reminds us that even in our most challenging of days, we have a partner who dances with us and will not stumble, even in the dark. Our dancing partner, God, was present at creation with wisdom, facing the darkness and the chaos. And out of that darkness and chaos, created our beautiful world with unimaginable diversity and yet order. Our God, who on the darkest day, Good Friday, of Jesus' cruel death, resisted violence and instead lifted Jesus to new life. Yes, our children with their very presence and playfulness are also the voices of Lady Wisdom, reminding us of God's wisdom. We can celebrate that Lady Wisdom, whom God created even before the foundations of the world, is present in our world. As we enter this summer season, may we heed her divine words from Proverbs 8. The Lord created me. I was beside God as a master of crafts. I was having fun, smiling before God all the time, frolicking with God's inhabited earth, and delighting in the human race. May we know God's wisdom through delighting in God and delighting in each other.